I started freelancing by working with my friends. That sounds like what I want to do. I need to pick something that I'm going to be doing for 4 years and make sure that it's something that I really like and something that I'll go into in the future. This is really mediocre. What's graphic design? And then it got to a point where I had to do my taxes and I was like, do you know what? I don't really want to do this anymore.
Lisa Pats.
Let me give it to me. You got that good.
It's your good sis Lisa Pats, and today's video is how I became a graphic designer. And I really want to make this video for those of you that are interested in graphic design and trying to understand how to get into that world, especially if you do not have formal education for it. I am self-taught. I just want to help others to understand graphic design a bit more and, you know, make it a bit more fun. Like, it's not every day that like you think the graphic designer is just some random man in the corner. Like, no man, we're actually lit. Let's just get straight into the nitty-gritty, right? So first things first, I just want to make sure that we all have like the same definition of graphic designer. So for me, graphic designer means someone that creates assets for a brand or for a company to bring that company or brand to life. So within that, a lot of us graphic designers do tend to use the same programs, and it usually is the Adobe suite. 9 times out of 10 you'll find your graphic designers working in Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, or Adobe InDesign. That is the 3 main programs that I use on a day-to-day basis at my workplace. So within graphic design, it tends to be quite a simple process of getting a brief. This just tells you what are your final deliverables going to be, what does the client kind of envision, or what is their goal, and how long you have to bring that to life. It gives you like the basic information for everything, and then from there I usually go into the research stage, which is where I start to reference from Pinterest and other websites. Google is great for references as well. There's other websites that I can talk about deeper in another video if you would like, because I love referencing and it kind of flexes my art director hat and just finding out a little bit more information about what it is I am designing. I like to make at least 3 variations of whatever it is I'm designing. That way, if I make 3 different variations, whoever my client is can kind of look at the 1, 2, and 3 and give an opinion on each one and say what they like and don't like, and that can help me to move forward to the next stage, which would be the 2nd round of designs, and then potentially a 3rd round, 4th round, however many rounds you've agreed on. And once it comes to the very end, then that's when you package up the files. You either send them the working file, which would be your InDesign file, your Illustrator file, or your Photoshop file. And then you also create the different formats that they might need, whether that's PNGs, JPEGs, PDFs, SVGs, whatever it is. Do let me know down below if you'd want to know a bit more about like file formats and how to package up your logo files, or how to package up your poster files, whatever it is, so it's ready for print or it's ready for digital use. Let me know in the comments below. The next thing I want to talk about is what you need to actually design. Like, what do you practically need to start this graphic design journey, or to continue it and make sure that you are able to become a fully fledged graphic designer? I used to be an illustrator, or I used to illustrate. I used to draw a lot, and I used to use my iPad and I would incorporate it into my graphic design. So this is my iPad here. It is a 12.9 iPad Pro. It works really well if you're using like a handwritten type for something in your graphic design, because you can then add like handwritten elements to it, like handwritten arrows and all like little marks. And you know that Justin Bieber video where you now a really specific reference, but you'll probably understand what I'm saying, and I'll put a reference in here of the kind of things you can create on an iPad. You can also create this on the computer. It's just harder. Now for my laptop, she's charging right now because I let her die a little bit, but I love her. Let me just take a thumbnail real quick. Hopefully that's good enough for the thumbnail. My laptop, my MacBook Pro. If you can get a MacBook, specifically the MacBook Pro, if you can get it, if it's within your means, please do get it. But you'll be able to achieve the same things on a MacBook Air, on a Dell, on a this, on a that. I went for the MacBook Pro because I used to work at Apple, so I was indoctrinated. No, on a real level, it is the industry standard. Most people have MacBooks, they have MacBook Pros, especially if you're a designer. I don't know any of my designer friends that don't have a MacBook Pro. So if you're getting your laptop for design, or if you're getting your computer for design, look at the RAM on this laptop. Here it's called memory, and it says memory 32 gigabytes. So this memory is not the memory that is used to store your documents. That is a completely different, separate memory. This RAM is talking about how much space does your laptop have to run multiple programs at once. So if you ran Photoshop, that might take up 8 gigabytes of RAM. So if you have 8 gigabytes of RAM and now you have your Photoshop running and it takes up 8 gigabytes of RAM, you cannot do anything else while that is on, while that program is up. And when I say gigabytes, just means like the size of your file. If you have a really big file size and you're trying to now open the internet and do some research here and message back your friend on WhatsApp and do this, your laptop might crash because there's not enough RAM, there's not enough space available for your laptop to do all those things at once. So that's why I went for the 32 gigabytes, because it allows me to be doing, I can edit a video, I can make the thumbnail for that video, and I can have 20 tabs open on my Safari all in one go. So now I want to get into my journey. I just want to share this because I think it's really interesting to hear how people get to where they are. My design journey, my art journey started when I was very young. I've always loved drawing. I've always loved colouring in. And when I went into secondary school, I continued with art. Art was one of my main subjects at school. I've always loved fine art. I've always loved painting. I've always loved sculpting. It's been a big passion of mine for my whole life. At the time, graphic design wasn't really on the card. I just kept doing art because I knew that I loved it. As I got to the end of my GCSEs, I already started to fall out of love with the mess of art, I guess I would say. I did used to sketch a lot, but I didn't find sketching as satisfying. I started to look at college options. I found out about this university called Ravensbourne. They focus mainly on film, but they had a lot of different courses on graphic design. And I said, what's graphic design? So I started to look into graphic design more, and I did a lot of my research on YouTube. I'm going to be real. I basically found out about graphic design, and I asked my tutor, like, can I incorporate this into my GCSE? Like, how can I do graphic design within my GCSE fine art? Because fine art is usually considered sculpting, painting, sketching. You wouldn't consider graphic design as part of a fine art GCSE. But I asked, and we figured out a way for me to try and do graphic design within my GCSE. I did a project which was basically me photoshopping me and my sister into this mirror, planning to go back through my old art books and show you guys like really nitty gritty, like how I got here and where I've come from. Even sometimes when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've actually advanced so much. Like I thought this was really cool at the time. This is really mediocre. But obviously you have to start somewhere. Along with this website called imvu.com, very similar to like Happy Hotel or like Stardoll, where like you create your own character and then you can kind of like do what you want with that character. You can go into chat rooms and talk to people from all over the world. And my sister had started photoshopping her IMVU character profile, doing all these colors and this and that. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like I want to learn how to do that. So she showed me how to do it. And when I look back, now I can put a name to that, which was, yeah, we were basically like retouching the images. Which is just wild to say now. I went into my A-levels knowing that I wanted to be more in the graphic world. I couldn't fully go into the graphic design because graphic design is not fine art. It's just not. Ended up leaving with an A, which I'm still so proud of because it was so hard. So hard. And then came time for university. And when I was looking at universities, I knew that I wanted to do game design, so like designing for games, or I wanted to do graphic design. And then I found Ravensbourne again, and now they were offering a foundation course. Foundation courses are 1 year of you basically trying out multiple subjects within one subject. Mine was an arts foundation course, and you could go into architecture, you could go into graphic design, you could go into photography, and I think you could go into like one more topic, which I actually can't remember what that was. It became very clear very quickly to me that graphic design was where I was going to go. So I did this graphic design foundation course for a year. I met some really cool people in that course, and it really opened my eyes to the possibilities of graphic design. And then it came to, now I need to pick like my actual course for university. Like, this was just 1 year. I need to pick something that I'm going to be doing for 4 years and make sure that it's something that I really like and something that I'll go into in the future. I remember they came round to our classes and spoke to us about each course. They had just launched a new course. It had only been open for 1 year, and these advertising and brand design students came and spoke to us, and I was like, that sounds like what I want to do. There was also a talk from the graphic design students, right? But they very much came with, yeah, we make posters, yeah, we make tickets, da, 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 da. It was so focused on like what they made. Whereas with the advertising and brand design, it was so focused on like what you could make, the possibilities. These guys were making films, they were making posters, they were making short stories, they were making websites. And I was like, I could just make whatever I want. There's no pressure for it to be a certain outcome. And that really attracted me, along with the fact that they just seemed happier. I'm just gonna keep it real. By then, a lot of what I'd learned was from YouTube. Big ups YouTube for being my teacher. Without YouTube, I don't know how I would have done this, because when I went into that course, I thought I was going to be taught all of these things that I had learned on YouTube. Oh no, baby. I was not taught that. I was taught about the history of advertising. I was taught about the history of branding. I was taught about how to brand a company. All of this stuff, which is very useful. But I thought I was going to be getting tutorials on Photoshop, on Illustrator. No. A lot of that course made sense and a lot of it didn't. But I'm really glad that I did it. But basically what came out of that is, for one, I created a collective with my friends called Enough Said. We started to explore putting on our own events and creating spaces for industry professionals and students to come together and create more opportunities for their futures, basically. And that was amazing because it really, again, opened my eyes to the fact that graphic design is not just like a poster. At this time I started freelancing, and I started freelancing by working with my friends. I still work with some of them to this day. I got into freelancing, which again opened my eyes to how to work with people and how graphic design could really bring a brand to life. Sounds like my catchphrase, but it's true. At the end of my course, COVID hit. It really messed up my plans. I'm going to be so real with you. My plans were to finish uni and then to get a job at a big agency. That was my plan. COVID hit. I finished uni feeling very uninspired and drained. I felt like everything was harder. Getting a job felt so out of reach. After applying for so many jobs, I applied for so many jobs, I got through to so many interviews and they just went nowhere. And I was like, okay, gang. I decided to freelance. I left Apple and I decided to freelance. This is about a year after the pandemic, when things had started to kind of return to normal. And then it got to a point where I had to do my taxes, and I was like, do you know what? I don't really want to do this anymore. Freelancers. Guys, let's talk about taxes for literally 2 milliseconds. But no one prepares you for that. No one prepares you for that self-assessment and the clicks and the information. I don't even know what that means. Like, it's so intense. And it just felt like a burden I didn't want. I started to look at full-time jobs. I didn't know specifically what agency I wanted to work for. I just knew that I wanted to work with a small agency because I felt quite burned by these bigger agencies. I ended up finding this recruiter, and the recruiter showed me a couple jobs, and I was like, oh, I'm just really not feeling it. And then they showed me my current company. I just knew, even though the website was pretty abysmal at the time, I just knew something was there for me. And then when I had my interview, everything felt right, and I felt like I had space to grow there. So I started working there as a junior designer, and at first it was a big culture shock, just being in a more intense environment and having to answer to people and having to show up for myself and speak up for myself. It was a really big shock, a big change from uni. I don't think any uni can prepare you for what it's actually like to be in a creative agency that is like at full speed ahead. But I got used to it. At the beginning of this year, I was promoted to midweight designer, which I'm so proud of. It's taken a long journey to get here. I understand like why it's taken me this long. In my head, this was all going to happen. Again, the plans that got ruined by COVID, this was all going to happen when I was like 22. Life comes at you so quick and you just have to like pivot with it. So being at this job now, it gives me the opportunity to, see how this works. We work for a big brand, but our brand itself is small. There is pressure, but there's also times when it's just like you're just learning and like enjoying the process, and I really love that. That's how I became a graphic designer. I wanted to wait to make this video until now because, for one, my channel didn't feel like I was like talking about designs. It was like, why would I be talking about design on the channel when no one knows that I'm a designer? And for two, because I wanted to get promoted before I spoke about this, because for me, something that made me feel like, oh yeah, like you're a pro now, was getting that promotion, changing my name on LinkedIn. Like, it made me feel like more of a professional. Along with, like, if someone asked me like, oh, like what do you do, I say with confidence now, like, I'm a graphic designer, period. And I know that because I know the job, I know what I'm doing, I know how to do it well, and it's such a beautiful feeling. So yeah, that's my journey. One day I would love to develop into a art director, and it's something I'm exploring now with like being able to combine like graphic design and art direction. How does that come together, and how can you as one person bring it together? I really enjoyed making this video for you guys, so make sure you catch my next one, and I'll see you there.